Most dangerous idols are not always bad things. They're good things we've put in God's place. Let's talk about it. Marriage is one of God's greatest gifts. It's beautiful, it's biblical, and for many people, including myself, it's a genuine desire. But every gift from God has the potential to become a substitute for God if we're not careful. Today, I want to talk through 7 danger signs that you have made marriage an idol. Welcome to Live, Love, and Marry Wiser, where we build better fences at the relational cliff so we need fewer ambulances in the valley. I am your host, Lorraine Edwards. We are still missing our co host, Onita, but we look forward to her soon return. I'm going solo today. I didn't have anyone I could just call on a short notice, or I just didn't because I don't like to call people on short notice. So I hope that you all will at least join me in the chat this evening so we can discuss these dangers. So here's the opening question. How do you know when your desire for marriage has quietly become an idol? Now, let's define idol. An idol is anything we look to for what only God can ultimately provide. And you'll get this as we continue to move on here. Now, it's not just it's not idolizing marriage when you just want to be married. God created marriage, it's good, it comes from him, it's honorable, all of those things. It's when you begin expecting marriage to do what only God can do. You can want marriage deeply without worshiping it. I want it pretty deeply, not, I'm still good, but I want that. But you don't have to worship it. The danger begins when your hope, identity, peace, joy, purpose, or obedience becomes dependent on you having a husband or getting married. You all know that this is like such a big deal for me because I believe and I teach women when I coach that you should embrace your singleness. Where you are, and we've talked about this here before, where you are, whatever that is, even when we're not talking about marriage and singleness as we are tonight, other things that you're praying for or desiring, you can still enjoy the life that you're having right then. Is it hard sometimes, especially if a lot of things are not the way you want them to be? Of course, it is hard. But when we believe that we can't be joyful, we can't have purpose, or we can't be obedient, or we don't have identity because of marriage, we have put marriage in the place of God because all of those things come from Him. All of those things come from Him. Tim Keller, he often defines an idol as anything more important to you than God. But here's a even more practical way to look at this. Marriage becomes an idol when you say these types of things. I'll finally be enough when. I'll finally be happy when. My life won't matter until. God hasn't been good to me because I can't really obey God until. And all of those things end with I'm married or I have a child or I have money or I have so many of the things, the topics that we talk about actually relate to all aspects of our life. Even though we are focusing on the singleness today, anything that ends any of those statements, you have already begun to idolize those things. Now, marriage is having to serve the job of savior. Imagine the pressure that is put on a husband or a wife if you're a man making these types of statements. So these are typically women. I mean, let's just be honest. Not that there are men who desire marriage strongly and all of those things, but these are typically things women would say. Um, Imagine the pressure that you're put upon a husband when your mindset is, "I'll finally be happy when." And we're gonna go deeper into that in our some of our later dangers. But danger number 1 is marriage moves into God's place. This is absolutely the first thing that we have to talk about. Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." And even though marriage isn't listed in those things, he's saying all these things that I want for you, all these things I've created for you. God created marriage for us, but he didn't create us for marriage. Kind of like the Sabbath. And so when we start to idolize that or put marriage first, or that becomes the most important thing, um, then we have lost our focus on 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 the purpose of it. And we've begun to idolize it and put it in God's place. When prayer is more about getting a husband than knowing God, I mean, if like I said, I've said to you all before, I would go to these you know, events, these church events, and I'd be like a heat-seeking missile, hoping, looking, wondering, is this going to be the time when I find him? So church becomes about networking and Bible study is research for finding a spouse, or God becomes a means to an end instead of being the end himself. That's probably the best way to put it. He's just a means, like we're just praying for him to do stuff for us. And so, and let me be clear, I would have never probably identified this, but when one of the greatest signs that marriage has become an idol is disappointment with God. And you can fill in the blank for whatever that thing is for you if it's not marriage. When you're disappointed with God because this thing hasn't happened, or really for any reason, but when you're for when because this thing hasn't happened, then marriage is definitely an idol for you. And I know this is going to be hard to hear for some of us, but I've been there. And I've been disappointed with God for other things that then replace marriage. Like when God and I kind of when he gave me the clarity from Psalm 84:11 about why I was single at the time and where he was, leading me, I really stopped being disappointed with God about marriage. But time has passed, and there are other things that I'm praying for God to do in my life that I have had feelings of disappointment. And so, and I'm not going to say that if you have a feeling of disappointment that you're totally like, but if you live in disappointment, as we said, if you can't have joy or peace or purpose or obedience or identity because you're so disappointed that this hasn't happened, then that's when you have made marriage an idol. So when you're disappointed in God because you don't have this thing, not because he isn't good, not because he hasn't delivered what you've decided you need the most, not because he isn't good, but because he hasn't given you a husband, then you've moved God out of first place, and then everything else starts to become distorted. So, danger number 2 is you stop seeing the life God already gave you. Now, I just think this is such an important point. Obviously, again, because I teach so much about e embracing where you are, and when we really take the time and I've started doing this, I'm not as diligent as I need to be, but my gratitude journal at the end of the night is, looking back over the day and being able to thank God for all of the things that He blessed me with that day, big and small, so that I have a right perspective of my life. Are there things that are really uh, not how I would prefer them to be? Not even talking about marriage. Yes, there absolutely are things that I don't understand what God is doing. I really, and sometimes I cry out to him, like, why, God? No, in fact, just earlier today, I'm just like, I don't understand this. And at the end of the day, I can still, like, literally at the end of the day, I can still pick up a journal and write things that I am grateful to God for because He said, I will never leave you or forsake you. And I am, I'm always with you. I have, all things work together for good. Mhm. I don't have anything bad against you. I'm not ever going to try to harm you. God cannot be tempted with evil, neither does he tempt any man. So God is all of the challenging things God uses. God doesn't do bad things to us for any reason because he's just a good God. So when we stop seeing the life that God already gives us and the things that he's already given us, then we start to just see marriage as the ultimate destination. That's idolatry. Everything else is just there for us in this waiting room. Because even that terminology, the waiting room, unless God has promised you that you will be married in this lifetime, then it's not a waiting room, it's just your life. Singleness is just your life. And so if we can't see what God has already given us, then that becomes a problem. So friendships, become waiting rooms. Family is temporary, purpose is just a filler. Ministry becomes something that I do until my real life starts. And instead of seeing our current season as abundant and fantastic and like seeing all of the things, we treat it as a layover, you know? So if you're flying from, some, say Gainesville to New York, you can't fly there directly. There's always going to be some stop in the middle. And so, you know, typically that is Atlanta. And so you have a layover in Atlanta. And that's just a period. That's not where you're going. So you don't have time. The layovers maybe, 45 minutes. Sometimes maybe it's even a couple hours, but you don't have time to go hang out in Atlanta. You don't have time to go out and like eat and see friends and no, you just stuck in the airport. You grab something while you're there and you're heading to the next place. Well, that's how many of us treat our life because we're not married. It's like, "Oh, I was a child, and now this period of time is just the time and I don't have time to go hang out with my friends. I don't have time to do ministry. I don't have time. I'm just grabbing little things, waiting until till the flight comes and I end up in my New York destination, my marriage destination." No. Stop treating your life right now as a layover to something because this is the destination until God says, "Get on the plane, we're going somewhere else." Think about it like that. This is the destination. So go see some sights, go buy a house, get a job, meet some people, hang out. This is the destination until God says. But the danger is when we see this as a layover, even our friendships. When we have a man, when we're dating someone, suddenly can't don't nobody know see you ever. You can't respond to no text. You can't go out no more. You can't do That's how you know that you've made this goal, this thing, marriage, is an idol to you, and everything else is just placeholders. And so that's danger number two. Once you stop appreciating what you already have, you become vulnerable to settling for what you shouldn't have. So, danger number three is a very popular one here. You lower your standards and ignore red flags. One of my one of the parts of my book, which you all this is coming soon, I promise you. Um it'll be finished soon. The last part of the framework, E, is elevate your standards so you don't minimize your worth. When you start to idolize a marriage and it is the goal of your life, your standards don't elevate. They decrease. And so, and you are not even really thinking about yourself in your worth. You're thinking about the goal. Just like, people will get on what is it, Spirit? I know they're closed, they're shut down now, whatever. It's like, I'm just trying to get there. And other people are like, I wouldn't step foot on Spirit's flights. Because after I pay for the flight, now I got to pay for a bag, I got to pay for a toothbrush, I got to pay for it just to get on the, whatever. So you're just saying, I don't want first class. I just want to get there. So if I got to go on Spirit, if I have to go on a Amtrak, which I like trains, if I have to go on a what's the bus? Greyhound, if I have to go on a bicycle, if I got to go on a skateboard, I'm just trying to get married. And some of you, because you've idolized marriage, you riding on skateboard trying to get to the destination. And God is saying, have mercy. This is my daughter. Now, character is negotiable. Compatibility is optional. Shared faith is flexible. Come on now. Emotional health is secondary. Is he a man? Does he want to marry me? Can he put three sentences together, maybe? And we stop asking, is this God's best? And instead, we're just asking, can we make this work? You're not looking for the 80-20 anymore. You comfortable with the 20-80. 20% is good and then 80% is like shaky or whatever, but it's like, oh, I'll fix it when I get married. That's a whole different episode. But um idolatry makes us impatient. Because you know what? Desperation is a terrible strategy. It is a terrible, terrible dating strategy. So, when we are the third danger, when we have made marriage an idol, is that we um, don't just overlook red flags, we paint them green. We paint them green, y'all. And so, one of the things I've discovered from working with Christian women and coaching over the years is that lowering our standards usually isn't the real problem, it's the symptom. The real issue is that we've never identified the lies we believe underneath those things. And so when we heal those beliefs, our standards naturally rise. But if the lie that we're telling ourselves is that our back to number one, our purpose, our joy, our identity, our hope is the source of that is marriage, then our standards will naturally decrease, especially the older that we get. So, what is the fourth danger? The fourth danger is that you expect marriage to do what it was never designed to do. When you idolize marriage, it's you start to believe, and sometimes you idolize marriage because you believe that it's going to cure or be this like fantasy, this Hallmark card, this, Disney fantasy, and you expect it to do what it was never designed to do. Marriage is was God. He said it's not good for man to be alone, for companionship, for shared purpose. He gave Adam purpose. Then when he had a partner, he said, "You're a helpmeet." That means now we have a shared purpose. It's for partnership, stewardship, service, sanctification. It's supposed to reflect Christ and the church. If you just stopped there and said, "I'm gonna have a marriage that reflects Christ and the church," what does that look like? You would already probably stop idolizing it and not maybe want it so badly because that's hard. What Christ does for the church as the husband of the church and the response of the wife, you'd be like, maybe this is harder than I think. But we start to think that marriage is going to cure our loneliness. It's going to be a solution to our insecurity, the answer to our purpose, the source of happiness, the completion of our identity. All those things from danger number one. That's why danger number one is danger number one, because it flows into all of this stuff. And so we're looking at marriage through this lens, and that is just too much for another human being to carry. Like, your husband is not your Messiah. When we enter marriage expecting someone to complete us, as much as I like the movie, Jerry Maguire, nobody completes us. We leave disappointed because we expected them to do whose job? Whose job? God's job. God is the one who makes us whole. And so, and marriage has a great purpose, but we magnify the purpose of marriage. We magnify the purpose and we expect it to do what it was never intended to do. Okay. And so, danger number five, because we have that fantasy mindset of all the things that marriage is going to do for us when we get it. When it happens, is this is a big one, you all. We stop pursuing our own healing. In our coaching with single women and in the book, lean into healing. Lean into your healing so you don't bleed into your future. If marriage is the solution, then I don't have to confront my issues, my trauma, my insecurity, my abandonment wounds, my people pleasing, my fear of intimacy, my lack of boundaries, my identity issues. I don't have to do any of that. I just need a husband. I just need my man. And then everything will be okay. Except how many people are married out there and know that not only do those things not disappear when you get married, they actually can be exacerbated because now They're rubbing up against somebody every single day. And now it's like, whoa, every time they do something, it triggers those unhealed things. And you don't know why it triggers it, and they don't know why it triggers it. And now we got this going on because you just mad and upset and crying all the time, and they confused and wondering, what in the world did I do? All I said was something simple. And so marriage magnifies what's already there. It doesn't heal anything magically. Let me know what y'all thinking in the chat. I want to know what you're thinking. God often uses, now I would say even always uses our time in whatever circumstance, but in singleness to teach us. He's not withholding marriage just because he's like, oh, let me taunt them with this. Like everybody else gets this, but you don't get it. No. Do you know how many marriages would have been, first of all, how many marriages would never have happened? Number one. And how many of the marriages that have happened would have been so much better from the beginning if everybody just did this? If you just leaned into your healing. If you just said, you know what? My family was pretty good, but we still had some issues. And I know I got some stuff. Let me go get some therapy. Let me get some coaching. Let me read a book and apply some of the stuff that they say in the book. Let me just do that simple thing. Let me read about marriage. Let me read about purpose. Let me read about singleness. Let me address some of the stuff that's going on in me. I promise you, they say 50% of marriages end in divorce. Maybe. They say that the number is as high in church as it is. That's not true. Uh, Shanti Feldon has done all the research. She's like really done all that. It's still high though. When she did the research in her book, I can't remember the name of the book, and I'll try to post it um, later in the description, that it's really about 33% of marriages in churches end in divorce. That's still one in three, y'all. That ain't no good number. It's better than one in two, but it's not good for people who say that they are believers in Christ and his word and his love and all of these things and his commandments, and we still getting married. One out of three are divorced, and a lot of those two out of three ain't happy. So let's not fake that funk either. Imagine if we hadn't idolized marriage so much that it's like we are rushing to do it because it's the end all be all of life. And now we're all jacked up because we didn't actually take care of our own healing. We didn't actually identify our own challenges. And here's the other thing, this just might be a little tiny bonus. If you're not identifying your own traumas and issues and whatever, and actually healing from that, you're choosing from those wounded places who to even marry. You're not choosing from a healthy place. So not only, that's why I'm saying, so a lot of those marriages would have never happened because you wouldn't even have been attracted that to that foolishness if you had taken the time to learn who you were, get healing, address your issues, and just start on that process. It's not, there's some things that will be healed and there are some things that you will be healing. But some of us ain't got band-aid the first. I mean, we already got a band-aid on some of our issues. And so we would not even have chosen that person. That person would have been so unattracted to us if we were healed. But because marriage was the idol, then we were blinded and they look really attractive. And God's like, no, that's not. That's not how it's supposed to go. And if you were married to the person that you would have married if you were healed and he was healed, imagine that, or healing. And so God is saying, you're single now. Maybe you'll be single forever. Do you want to be unhealed forever? Do you want to have trauma issues forever? Do you want to be bitter forever? Or do you want to go ahead and get healed? And then if you do get married, wow, even better. But even if you don't get married, you're a healed whole person. Imagine that. So here's another danger um that we want to talk about, but I just need to linger here for a little bit more. Um I've just spent so many years, speaking and coaching with single women, and I've watched women spend years try to fix their dating lives when what they actually just needed was healing. Their identity, their boundaries, their people pleasing, all these things. Fear of being alone. I mean, people who stay in relationships just because they are afraid of being single. This is why I have this podcast. This is why we write the book. This is why we speak. This is why we do coaching. And even the community is so people can have a community around them that helps to support them and helps them in that healing process. But I spend so much time helping women become whole alone before they become wives. Anyway, okay, danger number 6. Danger number 6. And this one's pretty costly, you all. Pretty costly. Not to suggest that any of the other ones weren't, because we already know putting anything in the place of God is already that's a problem. But you become willing to compromise your convictions. This one is huge. You know, those false gods that we read about in the Bible, they didn't have ears to hear, they didn't have mouths to speak, they didn't have brains to think. They were literally idols and people, and yet they demanded a sacrifice. People would sacrifice their children to these gods. People would have wild and like prostitution was part of, like religious prostitution. Like how did those two don't even really go together at all. Like, come on, sacrifices to gods that were idols. If marriage has become your god, then you will be sacrificing something on its altar. Believe that. And some of you, this is not condemnation. This is declaration so you can have transformation. Some of you have already sacrificed your sexual purity on the altar of the idolatry of marriage. I'm gonna just sit with that for a second. Y'all saw that thumbnail bowing before it, but some of us have laid before it. Our sexual purity, biblical standards, because there's standards outside of just sex. God has standards of how besides just sex. Our discernment, Lord have mercy, sitting on top of that altar in flames. Our peace, integrity, and God forbid our relationship with Christ. And what about time? Wasting time in a relationship God never called you to. Not even a marriage relationship, but dating someone, waiting for them to marry you when they not bit more getting ready to marry you. And praise God to that, because God is actually saving you from being stuck in a marriage that does not honor him or doesn't even make you happy. I know I'm going to say something just, totally controversial. People are just like marriage was made for holiness, not happiness. Eh, can I just say that right now? Because when marriage was created by God, there was no sin. God didn't say, I'm not saying that Adam and Eve didn't need to continue to be holy, because obviously they did and they failed. But God said in Genesis chapter 3, 2, it is not good that man should be alone. That- That's the reason. I will make a helpmeet for him. That's the reason. A partner in life, in ministry, and purpose before sin. Now, is marriage part of the process of holiness for married people now? Yes. But if marriage was made for holiness, then everybody should be married. So holiness comes through many different things: marriage, singleness, parenting, not parenting, taking helping your parents, taking care, whatever, caregiver. It comes through your job, through your health, it comes through a whole lot of things. God uses our lives to sanctify us. So he didn't create marriage so that we can be holy. We can be made holy through the statuses of our life, the situations of our life. I'm not even sure how I got on this tangent, um but we are spending years in relationships that God never called us to. That I remember, because God wants us to be happy. And I'm not talking if it's like happiness versus joy, whatever. Okay, whatever. We're not going to have that discussion. God wants us to have joy that comes from Him, but He also wants us to have joy in our marriage. Why does God want us to have joy in our marriage? Because marriage represents the relationship between God and the church. Does Jesus not want us to be happy in our relationship with Him? And I think he wants to be happy in his relationship with us. He's like, we disappoint him a lot, but his love for us. But if that's the representation and your marriage sucks, or you're miserable or unhappy, or you're grinding it out, how does that represent the relationship with God in the church, with Christ in the church? How does that represent that? So, yeah, we are wasting years in relationships that God never called us to, that we are miserable in, because we have idolized this thing. Every idol eventually asks for more than it promises. Every idol. Because idols don't give anything for real. And marriage is no exception when it becomes an idol. And finally, number 7, you never experience contentment. Philippians 4:11 through 13 says, I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. Ecclesiastes 5:10, He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver. The principle is universal. Whatever becomes our idol always promises satisfaction but never delivers it. This is the essence of the enemy, right? And that's really what we're talking about because there's God and then there's Satan. All these other gods are just Satan in a different form. And so we're making marriage become almost like Satan's thing when marriage is God's thing. But when we come at it like it's more important than God, that's the whole essence of this great controversy of God and the enemy. He's coming for here because when we put something, it's here that we're doing it. We're starting with putting that thing, which we're talking about marriage today, putting marriage before God. And Satan don't care what you put before God as long as you put something before God. Can I get a witness on that? He does not care what you put before God as long as you put something. If you put marriage, now you can bring other people. You can bring your husband, you can bring your children, you can bring the in-laws, you can bring all people into this mess. So, whatever becomes our idol always promises satisfaction but never delivers it. One of the clearest signs that something has become an idol is that obtaining it doesn't produce lasting peace. Why? Because idols always overpromise and underdeliver. I used to work for Ebony's husband, and we're gonna get Ebony back on here, y'all. She's just been busy. I used to work for well, both of them really, and I would always say that we should under promise and over deliver. Contractor, whatever. And a lot of contractors are great, and then a lot of them are not. So I was like, I would always say, let's under promise and over deliver. Well, idols don't believe in that policy. They believe in over-promising and under-delivering. That's the enemy's way of he promised you this hearts and flowers and romance and beauty and travel and trips and like all of these hashtag relationship goals, and then you get in that thing that God did not ordain for you or at a time that God did not ordain it for you, and ain't none of them hearts and flowers anymore. We tell ourselves if I could just get married, then it becomes if we could just get engaged, if we could just have the wedding, if we could just buy a house, if we could just have children, if my husband would just. Idolatry is never actually about the thing. It's about believing the next thing will finally satisfy the longing in our soul. There's always the next thing. We've talked about this. We had an episode about it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like it's always the next thing. Once I we start going out, when are we gonna get engaged? I mean, it's been a month. Like, let's just maybe relax a little bit. When we get engaged, when we get married. And people push this on us too, because they idolize marriage. Even married people idolize marriage. Even when their marriage ain't that great, they still try to make you, you know what I'm saying? And there's some people who have fantastic marriages and they want that for you, but when it's this the desire is not the idol. It's when it gets in front of all of these other things. But it's when we believe that the next thing, okay, once we get engaged, then I'm gonna be happy. When I get married, I'm gonna be happy. Then when we have our first child, I'll be happy. When we buy the house, we have a second child. We gotta And it's like always chasing the thing. That's what makes us happy. It doesn't. Augustine famously wrote, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in you." Capital Y, God. Marriage was never designed to satisfy the deepest hunger of the human heart. Only Christ can do that. So even after marriage, if Christ isn't enough, there will simply be another unmet expectation, another lack of contentment. That's why there are married people who are still lonely. You all know this. They're anxious, they're insecure, they're searching because the problem was never singleness. It was where they were looking for fulfillment. So, the seven dangers of idolizing marriage. Marriage moves into God's place. You stop seeing the life God already gave you. You lower your standards and ignore red flags. You expect marriage to do what it was never designed to do. You stop pursuing your own healing. You become willing to compromise your convictions. And you never experience contentment. After all of that, you never experience contentment. Thank you for joining this conversation. I don't believe your life begins when you get married. I believe your life is happening now. It begins when you're free. Marriage is simply one possible chapter of a life that's already full of purpose. That's the work I'm passionate about helping women do. And let me just share, if that's the journey you're on, keep an eye out. Over the next few weeks, I'll be sharing more about a coaching program that I've been developing for Christian women who are ready to move from waiting for life to building one. Because your life doesn't happen when you get married, your life is happening now. And I want you to stop waiting for your life to begin and start building one you're excited to wake up to every single day. So here's the beautiful news. The answer is not to stop desiring marriage. You all know that I desire it. I'm praying for it. I have some friends who've really locked in on this. They are praying, they're excited about praying for me. And my the man of my dreams, one of my friends told me, she's like, oh, and she's more excited than I think that I am. But the answer is not to stop desiring marriage. God created marriage. He called it good. The answer is to desire it in its proper place and proper order. Hold marriage with open hands. Hold Christ with both hands. Because when Christ is enough, you can enjoy marriage if God gives it. And you can still live a full, joyful, purposeful life if He asks you to wait or if He says, I'm not going to give it. Marriage is a wonderful gift, but gifts make terrible gods. This conversation resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs it. Give us a thumbs up and comment. Sisters, you don't need another relationship rescue. You need to apply wisdom that will keep you from falling in the first place. So, until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless.